will wait for 1 or 2 minutes. Let other people also join, then we'll begin.
Sure, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to the Sage Talk. To begin with, I would like to introduce you all to the Sage Group. So here goes an AV.
रिकॉर्डिंग बंद करें। रिकॉर्डिंग को कर। हाँ। रिकॉर्डिंग है।
वो तो दिखा रहा है सबका पहले। अरे
रिकॉर्डिंग
अरे नहीं है, गाइडिंग दिखा रहे हैं लोग, समझा करो तुम।
I cordially invite Speaker of the Day, Mr. Tapan Arora. Major Tapan Arora is an ex-army officer and a human resource leader with 15 years plus experience, diverse experience in business, operations, projects, and service delivery, change management, organizational development, capability building, and talent management. Currently, he is working with Apollo Telehealth as General Manager, Human Resource, Hyderabad. Over to Sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving this opportunity and calling me to this Sage Talk platform. I'll just share the screen so that we can start with the session. So a very warm good evening to everyone. So I can see a lot of participants are connected on the Zoom. So let me start with a puzzle. So you can keep your hands on the typewriter or the keyboard. So I'll be giving you a puzzle and in 15 seconds you have to answer. Let me see how many talented people are sitting with us. Okay, so what is 3/4 plus 1/2? What is 3/4 plus 1/2? Yes, 15 seconds. Okay, so 5/4, I've got the answer 1 hour, 45 minutes. Okay, two talented people we have. Okay.
2 hours.
Chalo, thank you guys. So let me start with the topic. Okay, so welcome to the topic of R2 talent, and obviously thank you, ma'am, for giving the introduction. So obviously, in next 40 to 45 minutes, I'll be covering what is talent and its element, how world-class talent is developed, and what are the laws and code that governs talent, and how we can apply these laws or talents in our real life. So obviously, first let's understand talent. Obviously, there is a lot of mystery going around. Some people say compare talent with intelligence. Some people say that talent is related to exceptional memory. Some people say that it comes with experience and exposure. So let's understand what is talent. So if you will go and look for the dictionary, talent is natural aptitude or ability. It means it is an inner quality or an inner potential which makes you better than anybody else. You all will agree that in TV channels also, or in YouTube, or many videos rotating in the WhatsApp, we see a lot of young talented kids singing or doing dance or doing skating or playing badminton and picking up other art and literature skills. So what is that? That is obviously those kids have the natural aptitude, means a natural potential, an inner potential which they have, and they highlight to the world. So obviously this is a distinguished skill that separates those kids or those people or those genius people, I should say, or those legend, and and these skills or talent make them extraordinary from the ordinary people. And obviously we all somewhere consciously, unconsciously in our mind, we also want to be into the bucket which is called extraordinary. No one wants to be mediocre or ordinary. Also, these talent are hardwired in a person. Hardwired means their brain is tuned to reflect those behaviors only. I still remember I used to take my kid to the badminton classes, and there a kid used to come off, I think 7, 8 years old, and whenever he used to get a shuttlecock on the right hand side of his hand above his head, he used to just jump and smash. And I had seen 100 times he used to do the same thing. And every time he will jump and smash. So that is, a person is having a talent, he do the same thing consistently with recurring patterns, whether they are in behavior or actions or feelings or emotions. So obviously talent is constant and enduring. No one can take it from us. Enduring means here, it is long lasting. It never dies. It is not for short term, or it is not dependent on something. It is independent. So with this introduction, let me move to the laws of talent. Let's understand what are the laws of talents, what are the codes which drive talent. And if you all will understand these 4 laws, I think you will get the message of the whole session, and then you can implement and generate world-class performance. So I'll be covering these laws one by one, but let me give a glimpse of that. Okay, so the 4 laws are: talent is within and needs nurturing. How you will nurture this talent is by deep and deliberate practice. And obviously, to do this deep and deliberate practice, again, you need ignition. Like a vehicle needs petrol or a diesel to run, similarly, we also need motivational fuel. And obviously, coaching. The master coaches will lead us to a talented person. So let's uncover these laws one by one. Okay, so coming to the first law, or the first code, which is talent is within and needs nurturing. And it is said that achievers are not born talented, but they possess the I can do attitude. So let me explain this with an example. So these people start very early in their life in a right conducive environment. For example, you will all agree about God of cricket, which is Sachin Tendulkar. So Sachin Tendulkar also started his cricket career. He started learning cricket actually at the age of 11. And he was in Mumbai club at the age of around 13. And during 14 years of age, he went to Madras, now Chennai, at that time Madras. He went there to attend MRF Pace Academy, where he wanted to become a fast-paced bowler. But there the coach, Dennis Lillee, I don't know how many of you know, Dennis Lillee was a fast-paced bowler of Australia, and he was heading that federation of MRF Pace Club. And when he saw Sachin, he told that, Sachin, you are not good in bowling. I think you should focus on batting. And from that age of 14, Sachin again started back working on his batting style. And at the same age, at 14, he played Ranji Trophy representing Bombay, now Mumbai. And later on, at the age of 16, you all know he debuted in the Test cricket against Pakistan in Karachi. And now you all know he's known as God of Cricket with 34,000 runs and 100 centuries at international level. So he got the right environment, right coach, Dennis Lillee, Ramakant Achrekar sir, who groomed him to become a world-class player. And obviously later on his experience and exposure. Similarly, we all know about our former president, Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who is also known as the Missile Man. So, Mr. Kalam hails from a very small family. He came from Rameshwaram, and his father was a ferryman there. He used to run the boats. And even Mr. Kalam in his childhood used to sell newspaper to support his family income. Obviously, when Mr. Kalam was in his childhood, he was not a very genius guy. He was average in his grades, but yes, what differentiated him is he had a strong desire to learn. So he used to spend a lot of time working on his maths. He used to give a lot of time to solve mathematics problems. And later, he graduated from physics from University of Madras. And later on, he joined aerospace engineering in Madras Institute of Technology. And that's how he was groomed in that fashion. Also, he missed marginally in getting admitted as a fighter pilot in Indian Air Force, where he was ranked 9th and there were only 8 seats in the merit. And after his aerospace engineering, he joined DRDO. And after a decade plus, he found that the life was very routine in DRDO. DRDO is Defense Research and Development Organization. And later he got a chance to move to ISRO, which is Indian Space Research Organization. And then he spent almost more than 3 decades in ISRO. So overall, he spent 4 decades, that is more than 40 years of his life in science and technology. And that's how he got the name of Missile Man. Also, with no experience of politics, on the basis of science and technology, he was selected as 11th President of India. So that is the life journey of Abdul Kalam, where he had the strong desire to learn, but he had given four decades for nurturing and becoming and gaining the name of Missile Man. The third example which I want to take is Ms. Shakuntala Devi. Obviously, she also hails from Bangalore at that time, which was part of Kingdom of Mysore. And she also, her father, you will not believe, her father was working in circus. And when Shakuntala Devi was around 4 to 5 years, his father recognized that Shakuntala Devi is having exceptional memory of working in mathematics ability. She can do fast calculation. And her father left circus and he started taking Shakuntala Devi on the road show, where Shakuntala used to display her mathematical abilities. Without any formal education, at the age of 6, she went to University of Mysore also to as a part of presenter showing her mathematical skills. Later on, you all know Shakuntala Devi roam around whole world, especially Europe and US. And few examples, if I want to quote here, is that she was told that what is the 21st root of 203, and she solved that problem in 58 seconds. Even she had on her name Guinness Book of World Record, where she was told that she needs to multiply 2 13 digits number, and she solved that in 28 seconds, which still she holds the Guinness Book of World Record. So she had also given almost 5 to 6 decades, and even she has written books. She was a writer, she has written novel, she was also an astrologer. So she has utilized those skills over time. Same with Lata Mangeshkar. She was a playback. She is still a playback singer, and she also started her career at very small. Her father was a Marathi Konkani musician and an actor, but and she was getting groomed under her father. But later on, when her father died at the age of 13, when Lata was at the age of 13, Lata moved to Mumbai, and she had taken guidance from from Ustad and under Hindustani classic music. And then you all know, almost last 7 decades, she had 30,000 songs on her name, which she has sung single and in duet. In almost 36 languages, regional and foreign languages, though majority of the languages are Marathi, Hindi and Bengali. So also, if you will see all these examples, people have given their life to achieve that geniusness. Similarly, Tiger Woods, I'll just cover in short that Tiger Woods also was groomed by her father. When he was at the age of 2, her father Earl Woods had started coaching him because he was very passionate of golf, and he started telling Tiger how to hold a golf club and how to putt. And when Tiger Woods was around 19 years of age, He was part of US Walker Club with 17 years of experience because he started at the age of 2. So I think there are many other examples which, because of the time constraints, I'll not cover. Just to name it, Michelangelo, W.A. Mozart, who was world-class music composer. Kobe Bryant, I think if you see NBA basketball series, he was part of NBA championship 6 times, and he was around 18 times he was given the Star Award in the NBA championship. Same with Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Jack Welch, Bill Gates. You know, in a week, there are around 168 hours in a week. 168 hours in a week. And these guys, including Elon Musk, Jack Welch, Bill Gates, they have given around 90 to 100 hours in a week to work. And if you see, I being an HR professional, as per labor laws, it is said that you have to work 8 hours for 6 days, which means 8 6 are 48. So labor law says that you have to give 48 hours to the work. But these guys have given double of their time. And still Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are giving their 80 to 90 hours or even 100 hours to their work. And that's how they are creating their empire. And even they later on, they are called as legend. So I'll move on to the second code, which is deep and deliberate practice. So obviously, the first point is chunk it up. We see thing as a whole, and then we broke it down and repeat the things. So obviously, just to take an example, very layman example, when we are given a roti or a pizza to eat, we see it as a whole, but we break it down into bites, and then we eat it, repeat the process till the time the roti or the pizza is over. Similarly, if you want to learn guitar or keyboard or any skill you want to learn in art, literature, games, you need to see the whole thing as a whole. Then you need to break it down, and then you need to repeat. Obviously, you have to go slow, take small steps, make mistake, and correct the gaps. So for example, anyone, I don't know how many of you have tried your luck in guitar, but in guitar there are around 6 strings and there are various frets in the string. So obviously you have to learn that which string to press, because strings are as per their thickness. So you have to press the string, and in that particular string you have to press the particular fret, and then you have to release that fret and then again hold the another fret in that string. And that's how the music is created. Similarly, in Casio, you start with Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa, and then you move to build and compose music. So you see whole thing as you absorb the whole thing. Similarly, if you have played the games, whether it is football, cricket, or basketball. In basketball, if you want to dribble and put the basket, you have to dribble the ball on the court. You have to go near the basket, and then you have to take a position with your elbow, with your fingers. You have to roll the ball, and then you have to put the basket. So all these things you have to learn. Even dribbling, I don't know how many people have picked up the basketball, but it requires a lot of focus. You have to go very slow. You have to take baby steps. Obviously, with these baby steps, you will realize, you will practice this very deliberately. Obviously, you will commit mistake, but those mistakes you need to understand, you need to observe, you need to be aware of that mistake, and then you can only then correct the gaps. If you will go fast, you'll not be able to understand that what happened, because you will do those things in just an impulse. So obviously, the progress in deep and deliberate practice comes very gradually. You have to work on sweet spot. Now, what is sweet spot? Let me tell you with an example. I think if you will see on the screen, you can see a circle shaped diagram where inner circle is the blue circle, which is comfort zone. Outside that is the learning zone, and outer to that is the panic zone. So if you will see, The sweet spot comes in the learning zone. So we all need to operate at sweet spot. Sweet spot is where you work on the edge of your abilities. For example, those people, those who have gone to gym or who are doing exercise, their trainer always tell that suppose you are pushing or pulling 10 pounds, then the weight will increase by 10%. That is, the trainer will increase the weight by 1 pound. So it will become 11 pounds. So directly he will not increase the weight by 5 pounds. By 1 pound, the weight will increase and you will be told to push or pull the weight. Even I am a marathon runner. So obviously we also had a very deliberate practice where we used to increase our weekly mileage by 10%. So for example, I started picking up running and in a week I used to run 10 kilometers. So by my coach, I was told that, okay, now you have to run, increase your mileage by 10%. Means this week you will run 11 kilometers. Because 10% of 10 kilometers is 1 kilometer. So you will only add 1 kilometer in your 10 kilometers. So that's how you work on the sweet spot and you will never get frustrated. Because if you increase your weight by double or if you increase your mileage by from 10 kilometers to 15 kilometers, at the end you will not be able to do that and you will get frustrated and then you will give up. So it is very important for all of us to work on the sweet spot, which is learning zone. Outside that, panic will be there, which means frustration. Maybe for some people it is depression also, that they are not able to perform. Next point is, obviously many research have showed that there are talent can be gained by working 10,000 hours or for 10 years. So how is the calculation done? Let me explain you in short. For example, a person is doing a practice for 4 hours in a day. 4 hours in a day. So if a person is working or practicing for 4 hours in a day, for 5 weeks, for 5 days in a week, it means 20 hours he or she is working on his practice in a week. Now though there are 52 weeks in a year, but we remove 2 weeks because of leave or any other this thing as a rest. And if you work for 20 hours per week for 50 weeks, it makes 2,000 hours. And 1,000 hours for 10 years is 10,000 hours. So this is how 1,000 hours into 10 years will make you to a move to a category of extraordinary people. Obviously, what happens during these 10,000 hours or 10 years is that your muscle memory is built. It's all about circuit. It is said that with this example, you will understand that whenever these impulses or these neurons are fired, in our nerve cells, this sheath of myelin is formed, which is an insulator, which doesn't allow these electrical impulses to leak. And this gets repeatedly formed. And this becomes so thick that your ability, your talent become fast. One is fast, second is accurate, and third is you become very strong. In microseconds or in milliseconds, you will have your behavior or the movement which you want to have because of sheath of myelin. So, okay, moving forward to the third law, which is the ignition. Obviously, as I said that for an engine of a car or for a bike to run, it is you need petrol or a diesel. So similarly, to run our body and to work and focus on deep and deliberate practice, you need motivation. So how this motivation comes? So let's understand with few examples. Obviously, this passion or the energy or your motivation can be intrinsic or extrinsic, we all know. But if it is extrinsic, obviously you all know that it will die down after some time. It is not long lasting and enduring. So if the passion or the energy levels which you have, which is coming from your inside, which is self-driving you, you will be committed to those talent to practice day and night, even if you get bored. You will be so committed, you will be so passionate to carry out the practice, and you will move to a category of extraordinary. So I still remember, because I being a runner, I'll take another example of a runner. If you have heard about Sir Roger Bannister. Sir Roger Bannister was studying medical in London, and he was studying neurology, and he got to know that no one has broken the record of running 1 mile in 4 minutes. 1 mile here is 1.6 kilometers in Indian standard. So he identified that no one has run 1 mile in 4 minutes. And he decided to take this challenge. He was so committed, and he created his identity, vision, or he got the idea and he wanted to implement that idea, and he started practicing. Though he was a medical student, you all guys should remember, he was a medical student and he started practicing. He studied that how to increase the pace. He started working on his strength and endurance. And in 1954, he set the world record. He ran that 1 mile in 3 minutes 59 seconds. And you will not believe, after that, within 3 years, 17 runners within 3 years, 17 runners have broken that record. Because those 17 runners came to know that, yes, this is achievable. So they were sending signal to their subconscious mind that, yes, this target is achievable, because Sir Roger Bannister had did it, we can also do it. So they were continuously sending the strong emotions to the brain's part, which is amygdala, which deals with emotions. And they had created their identity. Obviously, it is said that if you want to create good habits, you should focus on identity and vision, not on the outcomes. Let me take one more example on this. During a research study, the kids were told that by a teacher that how long you want to play in life. Whether you want to play only till primary level or high school or whole through your life. And the results were collated and they were bifurcated into 3 parts. First was short term commitment, medium term and long term. So the students who committed that they will only play till primary level, they used to play 20 minutes a week. And the kids, those who told that they created an identity that they will play till their high school, they used to play around 45 to 50 minutes in a week. And those kids who created their identity that they have to play their whole life, they used to play around 90 minutes to 100 minutes in a week. So that's how those strong desires, strong emotions drive you. So obviously these emotions or the identity which you create for yourself, which you want to achieve, are the primal cues. And they always tell you that you are behind, you need to keep it up. You need to keep up the pace with other people. Or you need to become like Sir Roger Bannister, that you want to break that record of running 1 mile in 4 minutes. So even if a study was done on this 100-meter dash sprint during Olympics, where Usain Bolt, Asafa Powell, Justin Gatlin, Maurice Green, all these runners were studied, and it was found that no runner was the first born kid to their parent. Usain Bolt was second kid to the 3 siblings. Asafa Powell was around, I think he was 6th of the 6th kid. Justin Gatlin was again 4th of the 4th kid. No one was the first kid. So these kids who were not the first kid to their parent, they wanted to go and wanted to beat their siblings, because focus generally is on the first sibling, the firstborn kid, generally I am telling. So they wanted to tell the world that they are not less than anybody else. Obviously, in the societies, few people work on survival also, security also, because they don't want to lose in terms of financially or in terms of relationship. I can see in corporate world also, people, the primal cue why people get motivated to work in corporate companies is survival. They want money. They want every month money so that they can run their household and they can earn the bread and butter for their family. Security, job security also push them and motivate them to work more harder. Obviously, this creates a multiplier effect. So moving to the next point, praise words. So obviously, once again, I'll share you a study where the study was done that kids were given a very fairly easy puzzle to solve. And later on, they were told the result of those fairly easy puzzles. Half of the kids were praised and appreciated for their intelligence. They were told that you are smart enough, your brain is working smartly, and you have solved this puzzle. And the other half of these students were praised for their efforts. How? They were told that you had literally put in a lot of hard effort to solve this puzzle. And you'll not believe the kids who were appreciated and who were praised for the efforts, when the next puzzle was given and they were told, now you have the option to choose easy puzzle or the hard puzzle, you will not believe that 90% of the kids who were appreciated for their efforts choose the harder puzzle. Why? Because they know that if they work hard, if they put in a lot of hard effort, they will solve the problem, they'll solve the puzzle. But the other category of kids who were praised for their intelligence, they were thinking that their intelligence is limited and they have only the IQ to solve fairly easy puzzles. So it is also said that I am told that in the forum there are a lot of faculty and teachers and parents have joined and other people from the society. So always remember that you need to praise your kids at home or team members in office or in business for their efforts and not for intelligence. And these praise words for efforts will lead to 10,000 hours, or your team or your boy, your kid will work for longer hours to prove themselves. Okay, moving to the next point is reward. When people get reward upfront with nice facility and equipment, obviously because they've got everything, these people lack motivation. And the people, those who think that yes, once they achieve certain level or once they achieve some tournament, they will get all the facility. That will strengthen the motivation, which is delayed gratification. So maybe if you have seen movies like Rocky, or in Bollywood movie Sultan, or maybe Dangal, you would have seen how they have practiced. They have practiced in very desi style. And if you will see people in other countries like Russia and US, they get all the facility and equipment. And generally, they will lack motivation because it doesn't inspire them to work very hard, because already they've got all the facilities. So I think this point also we as people, we as society needs to remember. So I think with this, I'll close the point 3 and I'll move to the 4th law or the code, which is coaching that leads to talent. So you all guys will agree that what coaching is. Coaching, what coach does is he identifies the sweet spot. Sweet spot, again I'll repeat, is the edge where we need to work on our abilities on the learning zone. It is not our comfort zone, it is not the panic zone, it is somewhere in the between. Outside of your comfort zone, the coach will make you uncomfort, but at the same time, the coach will ensure that you are motivated. They will create and sustain that motivation level so that you carry on with the practice. They will ensure that you have the right ignition, right motivational fuel, and they will ensure that you are doing deep and deliberate practice. These two things they will ensure, because these two things will nurture you and will ensure that you generate world-class performance. So now all these coaches have 4 virtues. Let's understand those 4 virtues. So these coaches are experienced. They have metric sort of expertise because they have given around 30 to 40 years of experience doing the same thing, coaching the set pool of people again. That pool of people will rise and move further. They'll get another bunch of kids or another bunch of talent, and they will again. So these experience, the experience perspective of coach will ensure that you work very deliberately on your talent. They are like farmers. They are very careful and deliberate in cultivators of myelin. As we have understood, they will ensure that your nerve fibers, in your nerve fibers, the tiny electrical impulse is generated again and again, and the threshold is crossed time and again so that a thick sheath of myelin is covered and no impulse is loosed out. And in response, you become fast, stronger, and accurate. Another virtue of these coaches is that they have a friendly gaze. At the macro level, they will understand what drives a kid or a student. And at the same time, at the micro level, they will have a very steady and deep gaze at the student or the kid. And they will see when these kids are being coached, what is the behavior they are doing, how much practice they are doing. And they'll just observe. And they will talk less. They'll observe more, they will listen more, but they will talk less. Because they want to understand that when you are told about anything to practice time and again, when you are given coaching, how do you behave? How do you react? Obviously, this comes with the time they have spent in that field. Obviously, these coaches have multiple strategies and they will always give small, concise and targeted adjustments in chunks. I still remember when I went to the army and I was picking up basketball. My ustad, my instructor, we call them ustad in army. My ustad used to always tell that, Tapan Sahab, you have to take a ball, you have to roll a ball, you have to just push some extra effort. You have to elbow like this. You have to use your shoulders like this. So small tips he used to tell. And whenever we used to be very near to the basket, he used to just shock them us. That Tapan Sahab, basket, shoot. Even if you have seen the soccer game or the football game on TV or on live, I think if you have seen, you would have seen the coaches never tell their students or players that, okay, now please go straight and then take left. They'll always say by shocking them, go straight, left, shoot. So they will always try to push the button in a shocking manner. They are never here to please anybody. That, okay, please take your right foot forward and take a shot. They'll just say, take a shot, throw, pass to the left, right. Because of their experience, they will only tell you small adjustments, and these small adjustments will change your life. Okay, moving to the next point, which these coaches have, or the virtue which they have, is theatrical honesty. Obviously, these coaches are subject matter expert, and they offer personalized suggestions to those players or kids or in any field, whether it is business or any profession or art, literature, science, and they will never hesitate to give you an honest feedback. Because once you get the honest feedback, then only you will improve. And those feedback will never, they will give in a weekly fashion or a monthly fashion, which now happens in corporate and other fields. On the spot, after the match, I still remember I used to be told by Ustad or by my 2IC that Tapan, this was the fault you did. From next match, you need to improve on this. Immediately after match or during match in a break, we were told that, okay, as you are moving on to the court, you need to improve this. So I think that honesty, that feedback which is given to us, help us to improve in a very great fashion. Obviously, there are certain circuit skills. Now these skills can be defined as flexible circuit skills and consistent circuit skills. So in flexible circuit skills like football, writing, comedy, you have the option to navigate through set of obstacles because they are flexible. When you are on the court and you are taking a ball forward in football match, you are very flexible. You can navigate to the left, to the right, you can pass on, you can take a shot. It all depends on how you are coached and at that moment what decision you are taking. But in consistent circuit skills, like playing violin, golf, even gymnastics in Olympics, there are set patterns which you need to follow. You can't deviate from that. So obviously, the coach, the trainer knows that what coaching has to be offered, and now we are aware of these things. So we also should, when we are grooming our kids or when as a teacher or faculty we are grooming, we need to understand which circuit skill we are working on, whether it needs flexibility or whether it needs consistency. So obviously the power of coaching ensures that you give people the part to find answers and not the answers. So with this, I'm moving to the end of the slide. The last slide which I want to share with you all is that listening to this session will make you feel better. You will gain certain frameworks of art of talent. You will get to know that what are the laws and code of talent, which separates an extraordinary person from an ordinary person. But all these laws and codes has to be backed up by action and only action. Only action will ensure that change come in your life. The last sentence is think like a gardener, because gardener is very patiently working on his garden. He's very deliberate, he's very careful, but you have to work like a carpenter. Carpenter works very steadily, strategically, and he works on small parts, and he knows that when he will connect these small parts, it will form a larger whole. So think like a gardener, very carefully, patiently, deliberately, but work like a carpenter so that you can connect all these dots and you generate world-class performance. Thank you. So this was the sum up of the session, that action changes things. If you want to build up any talent, you need to take solid actions and move to the world-class level performance. Thank you. So just to add on that, the framework which I have taken from, I had gone through these books, The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle and Talent is Overrated by Geoffrey Colvin. Thank you to these writers to put it up, these things in a very solid framework. And I have picked up a few things from these books and I have presented to you. Thank you for listening. Now, if you have any query or any questions, I am ready to take on. I think if time permits, I am ready to take on the question.
Anyone has any question, you can type down in chat box. Any teacher, any parent has any question.
either you can write on the chat box or you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question. To the best of my ability and with my understanding, I'll try to answer those queries. I can see around 50 plus participants
Yes, sir.
on the board.
More than
I
50.
request people can come forward and let me answer a few queries or whatever people have. I hope people like the session. I can see a few messages on the chat box. Thank you for patiently listening for last 50 minutes. Good, a question has come, which is more important, hard work or talent? Thank you for asking. I can read the name Madhuri. Asha, Madhuri ma'am, okay. Madhuri ma'am has asked, she spoke to me, yes. So ma'am, to develop talent, obviously hard work is required. And with lot of direction and ignition and motivation, and when coach gets involved, that hard work is converted to smart work. Though number of hours, I have already told you that research have done that you have to minimum give 10,000 hours. But if it comes naturally to you, maybe in 8,000, 9,000 hours, you can pick it up. Or if you work hard, if it is not a natural ability or aptitude to you, you can work more hard and reach to that talent. So obviously hard work is required to move from ordinary to an extraordinary level. Okay, next question I can see. I have question, how to use your intrinsic motivation to drive your life. Okay, thank you. I think Milan is asking this question. So Milan, intrinsic motivation comes from self. It is more internally driven. So when I started picking up running, I used to think of myself as a runner. So actually when I started 4 years back running, it was more extrinsically driven. I was more externally passionate that people used to run a marathon. So let me also run that marathon. So it was all external driven. So what used to happen is that when the event used to come, I used to run. And when event used to get ended, like 10 kilometers or half marathon, I used to just relax. Because I used to think that I have completed this event, let me relax. But later on, when I got involved with a lot of runners who had given world-class performance, they used to work daily. And how they used to tell Tapan, you don't have to run for any event. That you have registered for any event and you have to run. You have to run for yourself. You are a runner. You are a runner. And runner don't see whether event is coming or not. They only get up early in the morning and they run. So that's how I created my internal identity of runner and I started practicing. So this is how when you create a vision of yourself, you start practicing and there is then no need of external person to tell you that you need to run. Even I still remember when last year I was running Hyderabad Marathon and there are a lot of bridges in Hyderabad. So you have to go uphill and you have to go downhill. So whenever we used to run, people from Hyderabad runners group, they used to tell, oh, we are Hyderabad runners, we never stop on uphill. So we used to always run uphill and then it is downhill. So you know, you can get your breath. So intrinsic motivation is obviously comes from inside when you create your inner identity and those signals get to your subconscious and they will trigger your emotions and you will take those particular actions. I think in short, I tried to answer that query from Milan.
Somebody is asking what is important to be successful or, whether to be, talented.
Okay.
Talented
So again,
people are always successful, something like this they are asking.
What is more important to succeed in life, hard work or talent?
Yeah.
So obviously you will rise to the talent by working hard. So there is no doubt in this. As I told, deep and deliberate practice regularly, consistently, with lot of motivational fuel in you will ensure that you move from an ordinary to an extraordinary person and you generate world-class performance. So obviously hard work is needed. Sir, I have a question, that is, are talented people always successful? So here what I'll say is, when people are talented, are they nurturing their talent? If they are nurturing their talent, if they are grooming, working on their talent, obviously, if they've chosen this field to work at length for long term, they will be successful. But if you know that you are talented, but you will not take steps to nurture those, you will not do deep and deliberate practice, then there is no point of talent. Then there is no point of talent. So for initial 25 years, I had never, for initial 21 years till my engineering, I had never run. So I was not knowing that I had a talent of running. When I went to army, I realized that I can run. And in between, I had some surgeries and later on I stopped running. And during 4 years back, I again realized that running is calling me. And I started running. And I am a bit successful in running. Now, successful here also, what you are trying to say, but yes, you do good in those fields where you are talented if you work hard. So that is in short my answer is.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for coming for the SAGE talk. I would like to thank you on behalf of SAGE Group. Sir, you told us, the power of appreciation, the laws of talent, the motivation ignite. It works as a, ignite fuel, and so many more things you told. It was full of, motivation, and you told us how to develop talent, how to, further take it to achieve success. So thank you very much, sir. And now I would like to present a digital certificate from SAGE.
Thank you, ma'am. My pleasure. Wonderful, ma'am. Wonderful. Thank you. So nice of you.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, and the SAGE Group and all the participants for listening to me and giving me a chance and opportunity to present my thoughts in this session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.